from San Diego, California, this is the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans by the fans, with Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, Jason Eitzmo, and Mike Maciejewski. We're talking Chargers, Padres, and Aztec sports. It's time to let your voice be heard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
We want to welcome you guys into a jam-packed Chargers show. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about, good, bad, and indifferent. A lot happening over this, weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll be talking offense, defense, offensive line injuries. We're going to have Jake Hefner from ProFootballSpot.com on here in about 20 minutes to give his take on everything Chargers football.
Jake's going to let us know how Chargers are going to fix this. That's what he's going to do.
I hope so, because I don't know how to fix it. I was just joking before Jason pressed play on the show. He asked me the question about, see the title of the show, how are the Chargers going to fix this? I said a new coach.
You don't really think
He didn't think that was too funny.
No, I didn't. I don't think that of course, Mike McCoy is not a perfect coach. We've talked about this a lot. He's more of a conservative style coach, which I prefer. I know everybody else likes the aggressive coach because everybody out there thinks that the NFL is John Madden football, and they like to go for it on 4th and 32 and fake punt and, all that type of stuff. I like the more conservative coaches, and I'll tell you what, for everybody who's screaming and crying about Mike McCoy and his conservative and how he's a conservative coach, what did you have to say at the end of the second quarter when we had it like 3rd and 18 and Rivers threw that bomb and we ended up, 3rd and 18 deep in our own territory, where a lot of times we would just run a draw and, and punt and hope that we don't give up any more points. And we went for it. That's something that was a little bit out of character for him. What'd you think about that? Did you like that? I mean, did that excite the people that are so upset with McCoy being so conservative all the time?
Here's the thing. I don't mind his conservativeness, but at the same time, I think you have to take your shots,
which
whether it's good or bad. I mean, you take a shot, you get picked off, you go into a halftime. At least you took a shot, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for him to be aggressive, because if you're conservative all the time, then people know how you're going to play. You gotta kind of keep people guessing. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I like that point. I like the fact that, you can be aggressive, but you have to be aggressive smart.
Right.
And if you are,
and conservative as well.
Right. And if you mix it up and you take that shot every once in a while, you're more likely to succeed, because, I'm willing to bet that the Vikings figured that we were just going to run a draw or run something safe and try and, live to fight another day on that drive, and we didn't do that. And I think part of the reason that worked is we caught him off guard.
Right. For those of you listening in the chat room, if you think you have an idea of how to fix the Chargers, please feel free to comment in the chat room. A little later this afternoon, we're going to open up the phone line so you guys can call in and voice your opinion. But we'd like to hear from you regardless. Big Brian in the chat room, we're talking to you, my friend. If you know how to fix the Chargers, feel free to leave a comment in there, interact with us. But one of the things that, did happen during this game is we got decimated on the offensive line with injuries. It was kind of a Russian roulette of offensive linemen out there. Everybody was playing out of spot. We had guys that, I'm going to be honest, there's guys that came in that game that I don't think I've even heard of. We found the very bottom of the barrel as far as depth is concerned
let me ask
on the
you
offensive line.
Yeah, we did have a lot of injuries on the offensive line, that's for sure. We did have a lot of people just coming in and just plugging them in wherever we could plug them in. But let me ask you this. In all honesty, when we were down to our very last offensive lineman, was the line really playing any worse than they were when we had all the starters out there?
No, I mean, obviously, you could tell Fluker wasn't ready to go.
He certainly did not look like he was 100%.
Yeah, I start to second guess that decision of bringing Fluker back so soon. I know we needed him, but we need him for the long haul. And it kind of concerned me, watching him limp off the field after the game. And, then Marty Caswell comes out and tweets that, so-and-so is on crutches and Fluker's limping and this guy's, being looked at by the trainer with his leg. I'm like, Jesus, one game we lose our whole offensive line. And it's kind of like 2014 flashbacks, where we lose a majority of our offensive line early in the season, and then it's, we're having to, chew bubble gum and plug holes the rest of the way.
Right, and Josh Hill just joined us in the chat room, so welcome also LL Cool J. One of the things is to me the offensive line hasn't been very fantastic this year anyways. And I really try and stay away from Twitter because I get really annoyed and really upset. One of the things that people talked about was, this is a problem that we had going into the offseason and the Chargers should have addressed it. The Chargers did address the offensive line in the offseason. They didn't address the defensive line,
right,
but they addressed the offensive line. So
right,
let's stop throwing out there they should have addressed the offensive line.
Right.
Now, obviously,
well, a lot of people think that we have the best offensive line in the AFC coming into, this season. So,
but here's the thing, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Nobody has a good offensive line. I mean, there's so many poor offensive lines. You know who has a really bad offensive line? Denver.
Yep.
And they're still figuring a way to make it work. They have a offensive line that sucks, and they have a quarterback who really can't be expected to throw the ball more than 20 yards in the air. Not that he can't, but they don't. And they're still finding a way to win. So what I think, and I know everybody loves to run and blame the coaches, and I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon a little bit, and I'm gonna say, they need to find a way to put together a game plan and a scheme, knowing that our offensive line is not able to do some of the things that they want them to do, and we need to find a way to win anyways.
Well, I think a big thing that the Chargers leaned on last year is their up-tempo play. When we got decimated by injuries on the offensive line, Chargers went up tempo. They kept the defense on the field. They didn't allow them to, make wholesale trades on defense and get fresh legs out there. They wore the defense down by just kept pushing the ball. And eventually the defense, got so tired that we just started marching downfield and they couldn't stop us. Whether that's the answer or not, I did see, and I wish Justin was here, but I did see that, they did put a little more faith into Melvin Gordon in the 2-minute offense.
I saw them
game.
working him in there.
He definitely had some more plays in there. But Jason, before the show, and hopefully he's got this clip ready, he brought up a really good clip that kind of gives you another way to look at offensive lines as a whole in the NFL. And, Jason, you want to roll that clip?
Yeah, this is Trent Dilfer. He was on Mike and Mike in the morning this morning, and he was talking about, transitioning from the offense to the defense. I'm going to play about a minute and a half, but it's a really interesting take on the status of the offensive line in NFL right now.
NFL. The hash marks, the talent pool, just the speed and strength of the defenders are certain things that will never make it to pro football, would never work from Saturdays. But there's definitely a huge influence coming to the NFL from what's going on in college football. Now, the biggest issue is this, and this is the one nobody talks about. It's the offensive linemen. Offensive linemen in college football do not go forward anymore. They go sideways and backwards. And, look, you can tell everybody you play interior football, when your DNA is to go sideways and backwards, you can't just tell him to go forward and be physical and expect him to be able to do it. This is as bad of offensive line play that we've ever seen in football this year in the NFL. And a lot of that is due to because you're trying to stick a square peg into a round hole. You're trying to take a college offensive lineman, put him in an NFL system where half the plays are NFL-type plays, forward-pushing plays, and they're not capable of doing it. They're physical and big and strong, and they look like they can do it, but they haven't done it. And that to me, is the biggest reason why some coaches are going, why fight it? Let's get offensive linemen and let them do what they can do. Let's throw the ball out in the flat and block with the other receivers. Let's run the zone read. Let's do the things college teams are doing, and then have NFL packages where we're traditional and try to survive in those packages, and that's what you're seeing a lot of teams do.
So that's Trent Dilfer on Mike and Mike in the Morning, and he brings up an interesting point. And now thinking back to the collegiate level, I agree with him. Most of these offenses at the collegiate level are built around the passing game, and they're built around that not play action. What's the term I'm thinking of here, Jason? The option play.
The read option.
They're built around the option play, and that's what he means about going sideways. So, the quarterback takes the ball, and then he has the option of either pitching it to the running back or taking it himself. And these guys aren't used to the power run. The power run isn't used at the collegiate level. It's more finesse, it's more passing game, and it's more the option play. And I think that's where, we're starting to get a little delusion in the offensive line talent coming into the NFL. And, Jason's point, and I'll let him elaborate, is that, it's just not the Chargers. It's everywhere in the NFL that these offensive line are just getting dominated by the defensive line because they're not of the pedigree that you once used to see coming into the NFL.
Right, and the thing is, the teams that are successful are the teams that are able to adapt and understand that the offensive linemen nowadays don't have the abilities. Like Trent Dilfer said, this, I'd been thinking about how the offensive line, not just for the Chargers, but for everybody, has been having issues. But when he said that, it just rang so true to me, because we keep talking about how the college is not developing quarterbacks. College is not developing quarterbacks. College is also not developing offensive linemen to play the pro style that they're asked to play. And, Mike McCoy, we know that he's adaptable. Mike McCoy was in charge of that Denver offense that took Tim Tebow and made him a winner, for crying out loud. He developed an offense mid-season that allowed Tim Tebow to be successful and to actually win a playoff game. And for that, he should be able to do that here. We have talent here,
right?
But he can't just, we complained about Norv Turner wasn't willing to adjust to what we had, and I hope we don't have that same problem with Mike McCoy.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that Mike's still going through some growing pains. Let's remember I think he's the youngest or the second youngest coach in the NFL. So he still has a lot of room to grow, not only as a coach, but a head coach, a decision maker, and his adaptability in the NFL, world. Some of these other seasoned guys have been, through the ringer. They've changed their offense probably 10 different times to, stay fresh and stay ahead of the curve. But he's kind of trying to, he's trying to do it on the run, and sometimes that's not easy to do. But here's the thing. You have a very, very good quarterback in Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers, if you give him adequate time, which unfortunately he hasn't received, but if you give him adequate time, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's going to win you football games. My concern is what you saw in Minnesota, where our offensive line could not stop the defense from Minnesota, and Phillip Rivers was getting absolutely crushed.
And the other problem that we had was defensively. Now, I thought our secondary actually played fine. Even though we had a lot of injuries, I think the secondary played fine. The problem with our defense right now is also, it's kind of funny because we just talk about offensive line trouble, and Josh Hill makes a great point. Offensive lines aren't having trouble against our defense.
Right.
Now, he brings up the fact that we only have one sack. One of the problems, I think, one of the reasons why we only have one sack is because the teams that we're playing against are playing from ahead, and they're running the ball to try and maintain that lead, and they're being very, very successful running that ball, which doesn't really give us a chance to rush the passer. I think our defense is the type of defense that will be able to play really good with a lead, because I think our secondary is really strong, and I actually think our pass rush is really strong. The problem is our run defense is horrid.
Right.
Our run defense is so bad. It's been bad even when in the game we won.
I'm starting to have a little concerns with Eric Weddle too. Not to say that he's not giving it 100%, but I don't think he's giving it 100% out there. It seems like every week, I'm got a question mark with Eric Weddle and a play he made during that game, and we never used to be concerned about that. Eric Weddle always made the plays. He always made the tackles. He went over and above, was always the leader of this defense, and he struggled to a bit, Jason. But I want to comment on Josh Hill's comment about our D only having 1 sack. The flip side of that coin, also, Josh, is we have the number 3 pass defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
So even though we're not getting to the quarterback, our secondary is doing very well against these wide receivers that we're going up against. And we're going up some really, really talented wide receivers in the first 3 games, especially in the first 2. So, I mean, obviously, yes, I want to see it improve because that's where we lacked last year. We definitely need to we definitely need to get to the quarterback because that's going to help a lot of things. It's going to help the passing attack even more. It's going to help also the running attack. You know what I mean? If we got to make them one-dimensional and they're having trouble passing the ball, now they got to run the ball. Now you can put 7 men in the box and try to just put a complete stop to it.
Yeah, I think that offensively we need to make an adjustment to. We have to design our offense around the fact that our offensive line is just not going to be able to block for that long. They're just not going to be able to. And defensively, we need to make some redesigns up front with the understanding that we need some help stopping the run. They need some help stopping the run. Giving up 4, 5, 6, 7 yards per run is just not going to cut it. It just isn't. It's too hard in the NFL to stop a team when they have a 2nd and 4, a 2nd and 3. And that's what needs to be fixed. That's what I think needs to be fixed.
Now, also, when it comes to defensive lines, being a 3-4 defense and opposed to a 4-3 defense, you have one less body on that defensive line. So then it comes to your linebackers, where the 3-4 defense benefits is usually from the outside. It's usually those outside linebackers that are making the plays because a lot of times it's a one-on-one matchup for them. Where our defensive line, it's 3-on-4, 3-on-5 a lot of times. They're having a difficulty, breaking through. And I think it's more important that our outside linebackers are making the plays, and our D line is making containment. Our defensive line doesn't necessarily have to blow up the offensive line, but they need to contain the offensive line in the running game and allow our linebackers, who, arguably we have some of the best linebackers in the NFL as a core group, allow them to make the plays. And they have been. I mean, Donald Butler looked great again against Minnesota. Granted, we didn't win that game, but there were some bright spots that came out of this game as well.
There's some bright spots. Josh Hill brings up that goal line play where Perryman, and I know exactly what you're talking about, where Perryman shot that gap and he ran into the backfield. It was the wrong gap. If that's where they ran, he would have been in the perfect place to blow him up. And I don't know enough
that's
about.
That's where Bridgewater ran off to the right.
It's
I
where
believe.
he handed the ball off, and Peterson ran off to the right, and he just went in the wrong gap. Now, I don't know enough about that play, and nobody does because we're not in the film room. But first of all, the first possibility is that's exactly what he was supposed to do,
right.
And if that was the case, then he did his job perfectly. The ball went somewhere else, or it's also possible that he went to the wrong spot.
See, so Trav has always been on Manti Te'o, and Brian as well. He's saying that Te'o needs to sit down, let Perryman play. I don't know if I agree with that.
I disagree.
And we told Trav the same thing. Te'o, he's not a superstar. I'm going to throw it out there right now. He's not a superstar, but he's very consistent. The guy is always. He's in every play. Every time you see the tackle, he's right there. He's in every play. He's not getting beat. He's not making the big play, but he's very consistent. And we don't know what we're going to get out of Perryman.
I'll tell you what.
Sure, Perryman could come in there and just light the world on fire, but he could come in there and get destroyed.
I think it's too early for Perryman. We got a chance to see Perryman in the preseason, and he did not do anything spectacular. He had a great college resume. He looked really good in college, for those people who saw him in college. And he's, people talk about how he's making all these special team tackles, which is great. But we've had guys that make special teams tackles that weren't able to become starters. So I think we need to slow our jets a little bit on Perryman. Understanding, I'm not anti-Perryman. I don't hate him. I just think that I think putting him for Teo right now would be a big mistake.
Well, he's definitely the future, but I agree. I think Manti has to be in there right now as far as his knowledge of the game. You remember when Manti was a rookie, he made plays, but he seemed lost at times.
Yes.
And, Perryman being a rookie, he would be in that same situation. He's going to make plays, but he's going to be lost at times. Manti is in that groove now where he doesn't have to think. He just has to react.
Reacting.
So we're going to take a quick break. Let's see what Jake Hefner from ProFootballSpot.com's take is on the Chargers right after the break.
Charger Nation, we run the West. Yeah, we run the West. Let me break it down. AFC West, we rep our team. Yeah, we bless. Don't put us to the test. Yeah, you know the rest. Blue and gold's when we bleed. They go on our chest. Die hard fans in them stands, that's the best. We rep our city, we rep our team. We love our city, we love our team. Now you understand, the Chargers is our team.
Do you need help with your business project that is due? Maybe you need business cards to help your business stand out. We at San Diego Sports Junkies got you covered. SK Digital Imaging can do it all. Give our buddy Sean K a call, 858-408-0732. SK Digital Imaging, from business cards to the bigger projects, SK Digital Imaging and our buddy Sean K will get your printing done right.
All right, guys, we are back, and better than ever, we have Jake Hefner from ProFootballSpot.com to give us Jake's take on Chargers football. Jake, welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me on. How you doing?
We're doing great, man. I wish the Chargers could pull out a victory for us, but aside from that, living life, man.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. You're absolutely right. Hopefully we can right the ship collectively as a team this Sunday.
Now, I don't know if you were listening earlier, if you listened to Mike and Mike this morning, but we're all complaining about how poor the offensive line is. There's been a lot of people talking. I know Hal on Twitter, one of the things that he had said last Sunday was, stop complaining about the offensive line. A lot of teams have offensive line trouble, and they're overcoming it. And Trent Dilfer was on Mike and Mike this morning, and he basically said, the problem in the NFL, there's the offensive line. He's never seen more poor play out of the offensive line, and he thinks it's because the way that all the offenses are in college, offensive linemen don't go forward anymore. They're going side to side and they're going back, but the offensive line in college aren't going forward. They get to the NFL and they're big and they're strong, but they've never had to play going forward, and some of them are not able to do that. I personally listened to it, and it really hit home for me. I agree. Do you agree with what he said, or do you have a different take on that?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting theory, and it makes perfect sense as far as, what offensive linemen are taught. It's almost kind of how everybody had to restructure the way that they tackled when they brought in all of these, changes in the rules as far as where to tackle people, and, how they've done it, this way for so long, and just doing it in a different way, just trying to flip a switch. So it's an interesting theory. But if you look at, who the Chargers have along their offensive line, other than Chris Watt, you really have to say that none of these guys would have been affected by that theory. So it is quite disturbing when you see the way that the Chargers' offensive line has been dominated the first 3 weeks of the season. The fact that Phillip Rivers has now been sacked in double-digit times, which is very disturbing. And, of course, the injuries are starting to pile up, and it just seems like same story, different chapter for the Chargers. But, in a way, you have to look at it and say, how is it that this team can suffer so much with a starting five, and yet if the Patriots lose their center on the home opener of the season and they plug in an undrafted free agent and they can go off without a hitch? So there is certain aspects here that are obviously not being able to be able to be defined, whether it's from a coaching standpoint or a personnel standpoint. All we know is at the end of the day that the ship needs to get right, and it needs to get right in a hurry.
Well, Jake, I mean, I think a lot of that would have to go on the coaches. If another team is having a similar issue and they can just plug guys in and it's like nothing's changed, to me that seems like coaching more than it does, the athlete himself. With that said, we went through this in 2014. We went through a bunch of injuries. We were able to redefine ourselves in our offense, and we went more hurry up, and we were fairly successful throughout the remainder of 2014. Do you think this Chargers team can right the ship and start the up-tempo offense on a consistent basis and be successful with the injuries that we've mounted on the offensive line?
Can they do it? Yes, they can do it. Will they do it is a complete mystery, because this Chargers team has not come out with any sense of urgency at all. They have always started, strangely enough, with the ball in the second half. However, they are completely quiet offensively in the first half of the game, and it just does not make sense. It's almost like they want to wait to see what the opposing offense or defense is.
Interesting.
The Chargers would, where the Chargers would go down and, the first drive of the game would just be boom, points are on the board, and they were able to score that fast and at will. And now, for some reason, the Chargers can't figure out really what they want to do offensively, and it's whether they want to, get Melvin Gordon running, get the running game going, or if you want Phillip Rivers out there not coming out in the no huddle to start the game, or 3-step drops, 7-step drops, whatever you want to do. For some reason, the starting offense at the beginning of the game, when the defense shouldn't be used to what you're doing at all, is sputtering. And this is why the Chargers have had to play catch-up in the last 3 games. And it's very difficult to do that when your quarterback is on his back and you're losing the turnover battle. So the offense, in my opinion, for the next game, if they win the coin toss, you bring up the offense first. You set a tempo with that group of 11 people, and you go down and you show that this is what we can do, this is what we're going to continue to do, and start riding some positive momentum on the offensive side of the ball.
I love that. I've always been, back before teams were doing it, I always loved it when we lost the coin flip and we started in the second half. I always, for some reason, like that. But I think I agree with you, Jake. I think that offensively, we need to come out there and we need to, set something, and we need to go out there and we need to show that we can move the ball. Now, before you came on, one of the other things that I had mentioned was, I think that, we talked about it might be a coaching issue with the way that they're designing it, or a game plan issue. We know Mike McCoy is able to adjust his team to the players he has, because he was offensive coordinator with Tim Tebow when Tim Tebow was with Denver, and he ended up, making Tim Tebow into a successful quarterback that actually won a playoff game. Do you accredit that to him, what happened there in Denver? And, do you think that that's more of the issue, is designing this offense with the understanding that maybe our offensive line can't quite do all the things they wish it could?
I credit him, first of all, for what he did in Denver with Tim Tebow, and what he was able to do for that Denver offense for several years. However, I don't credit him necessarily with the offensive woes that are currently happening with this team. My blame goes to Frank Reich, and I just don't understand some of the plays that he is dialing up. There was a play in the Minnesota game, I can't remember if it was late in the second quarter or maybe in the middle of the third, where Chargers have the ball and Melvin Gordon on first down runs for a clip of 7 yards. So it's 2nd and 3. It's 2nd and 3. And by this time, it's already known that your offensive line is getting pushed around. People are rotating out. People are getting hurt. And the next play, they run a strange reverse play with Danny Woodhead in motion to where he comes in front of Phillip Rivers. and tries to get around to the outside in order to gain positive yards. And, of course, the defense was able to plow right through the offensive line, and the next thing you know, you've lost 4 yards, and now it's 3rd and 7. So I don't understand that when he already knows by that time that the offensive line is in shambles. You're trying to get a rhythm going, and you come out with something like that. It doesn't make any type of sense to me whatsoever. And if you notice, the right side of the offensive line is getting absolutely destroyed. I know a lot of people were wondering about Joe Barksdale and what the type of player that he was going to be on the right side of that ball. And to me, he hasn't looked good whatsoever. He keeps getting beaten off the ball tremendously, consistently, and it's just unfortunate, because that to me is where all the pressure seems to be coming from, and then it follows through the middle part of the offensive line through the center and guard position, and eventually Rivers gets put on the grass. So I don't know what Frank Reich is really trying to establish here. And I think at the end of the day, Jody Alessandros for the offensive line is still one of the best in the business. But Frank Reich, as an offensive coordinator, needs to figure out what it is he really wants to do with this team and stick to it. And, of course, you're going to adapt as the game goes on, but you need to have a strict plan for when things start to go wrong, that you're going to know how to fix it and not keep doing the same thing that isn't working.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jake, and I'm glad you brought that up because, last year, Phillip Rivers and Frank Reich a lot of times were butting heads. It was seen numerous times, them arguing on the sidelines, after something didn't get right. And then maybe this is just Phillip Rivers' fiery attitude, but a lot of it was pointed towards Frank Reich. He'd pull off his helmet and scream in his helmet, and that's going right in Frank Reich's ear because that's what he was communicating with through that helmet. And I saw a little bit of that on the game against Minnesota. He's getting over in his ear, and it was after he got hit hard a couple times. He's like, dude, what are you doing? You're going to kill me out here. And, I think Frank Reich, he was a good quarterbacks coach, but I think he is hampering our offense as an offensive coordinator.
I mean, it sure looks that way through these 3 weeks. Last year you could have given him a pass. I know a lot of people were actually excited about what he was going to bring to the team. And remember, let's not forget what he said 2 years ago, what he was going to bring to this offense: speed, tempo, all those type of factors, and we haven't seen any of them yet. You just haven't, and the reason because that is the Chargers are playing catch up all the time, and there is a finite amount of ticks that are left in the game in order for you to establish a rhythm. And by this time, you're trying to figure out, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to run the ball? Do we want to pass the ball? Do we want to go deep? Do we want to do the short little dump-offs, which apparently has been taken away from Phil Rivers completely? It really seems as if there is an easy blueprint of the Chargers for defenses to look at in order to beat them nowadays. So, again, it's just about establishing an identity. And the Chargers need to come out and they need to hit the ground running from this point on for the rest of the season, knowing exactly what it is that they need to do.
Jake, are we seeing the Antonio Gates effect? Is the lack of Antonio Gates in our offense, is that what we're seeing right now? His presence out there, hampering the production of this offense?
No, I don't believe that that's the case, because if you look at the Cincinnati game, strangely enough, with all the turnovers and mistakes that happened, the Chargers still had an opportunity to ultimately win that game on numerous occasions. It wasn't just the end of the game. So I don't think his effect was felt very much in the Cincinnati game. And you look at Minnesota, they just got absolutely obliterated. I don't believe that the effect of Antonio Gates would have made that game swing one way or the other. It may have made it closer in the final box score. But I don't believe that the fact that Antonio Gates was not on the field one guy when the offensive line is getting destroyed that way, it was really going to make a difference at the end of the day.
Josh jumped in there and stole my question. I was gonna say that too, but I actually have a little bit of a different.
You got to adapt, dude. You got to adapt.
I actually have a different view on that. Actually, I disagree with you a little bit, Jake. I'm wondering if defense defenses are able to play us a little bit differently without Antonio Gates out there. You know, when Antonio Gates is out there, you almost have to dedicate 2 guys, you know, not necessarily running down the field with him, but I think they have to put 2 guys to kind of be aware of where he's at, and that's one less guy to maybe rush the passer. And Gates isn't out there as a great blocker. We know that. That's not why he's out there. But if he can occupy 2 different guys who have to at least be thinking about him, I think that actually is an advantage for our offensive line, and I think that that's something that we don't have without him out there. And although Ladarius Green has played good in the first 2 games, people haven't gone out there saying we need to stop Ladarius Green. He's had a couple decent games and he's made some catches, but they're not worried about him. And I think that people still worry about Antonio Gates, and I think that it's hurt us a little bit more than we expected.
I mean, it's possible, but again, it's just, you look at the time that Phillip Rivers has back there and just the non-continuity of what you're trying to do with the rookie running back, which again, and you know, this is Melvin Gordon learning, but in that first half, there were several holes that Melvin missed. You know, he went on to have, you know, a much better game as the game progressed, but he is missing the wide open holes that are already being produced. And he's trying to still act like he is in Wisconsin and juking a different direction and thinking that he can break one around on a different angle, and it's just not going to happen. So he needs to learn to go straight forward. But it just seems like the Chargers are in 3rd and long way too much, and you know, you just can't get off the field. And if you notice, the only time, it felt like really the only time that Minnesota decided to lay off on a blitz and go to a prevent defense was on that 3rd and 18 where Phillip rocketed the ball down to Malcolm Floyd. All of a sudden, he had time. And for the rest of that drive, it seemed like that was it. And then you see Minnesota, of course, made their adjustments and said, well, we're not going to let that happen again. And it didn't matter really how much they blitzed Phillip Rivers with. It was 4 or 5 or a combination of the 2. It didn't matter on all different downs. But nobody was being able to stop anybody. So, again, you could talk about having an extra guy on Gates as far as a defensive back, but at the end of the day, I really don't think, as far as what was happening in the trenches, that was going to make that big of a difference.
Jake, couple thoughts in the chat room. One from longtime listener Big Brian. He says, to me, it seemed as if they played not to get hurt. McCoy and the coaches, ? When that happens, you end up getting hurt. Got to bring some fire to the offensive line. Plus, mixed signals between Rivers and everyone else. I hate when he brings the play clock down to 1 second. It's risky. And I think a lot of that alludes to the coaching, you know, obviously. And I tend to agree with this. And actually, it was funny. I was actually talking with my wife about this, is that, you know, not playing enough in the preseason, not only, you know, when it comes to learning the offense, but, you know, getting in sync. The offense seems like it's out of sync, and you know, I think the lack of playing time in the preseason and their whole fear of getting hurt could have hurt us there. And then Brian's other point, which, you know, it is risky. You know, that our offense always seems to be snapping the ball with 1 or 0 seconds on the play clock. It leaves no chance for error.
Well, I mean, if you snap the ball with 13 seconds left on the clock or 1 second on the clock, you know, mistakes are still going to happen. But I understand what you're saying, you know, in terms of, you know, it seems like there is something missing in the translation, because you constantly see Phillip Rivers up on the line all the time. And maybe it's him correcting somebody, or maybe it's him simply audibling out of the play because of something he sees out of the defense. You know, of course, we can't tell from you know, our perception watching it on television. But the fact that, you know, the time regulation, and it's one of the reasons that we had to burn 2 timeouts in the first quarter of the last game. I mean, this time management thing has not gone on for 1 game. It's gone on for all 3 of the regular season so far. So I think it's more of a whole of, you know, you start at the beginning of the coaching staff, you move it down to Phillip Rivers, and then, of course, you move it down to the rest of the personnel on offense. So collectively, they need to understand how important being gelled on every facet of playing offensive style football, especially when you're in a quick tempo, or especially when you're trying to, you know, establish a rhythm. When you have to keep taking timeouts like that, or you're getting hurried, or you're getting rushed, it's going to throw things off. So absolutely, I think it just needs to be more structured. And, everybody needs to be on the same page as a whole in order for them to be together and work, as Mike McCoy says, as all 11 guys being able to make the chains move all the way down the field.
Well, I'm going to jump in here now and steal Josh's question. And the only thing bringing the clock down and Rivers going up there and audibling and making those fine-tuned adjustments doesn't bother me at all, because I think that he notices something, he tries to make the change. But it is worth noting, if you're taking the play clock down to 1 second every single time, you are giving the defensive line an advantage, because they know you have to snap the ball right then. And with our offensive line already having a little bit of trouble, I'm wondering if maybe if there's a way they can make some adjustment where, maybe we can get a few snaps at 3 seconds or a few snaps at 4 seconds, or maybe him going, I'm not going to make this final adjustment. I think that it's better for us to snap the ball when they're not ready.
And in addition to that, Scott in the chat room, he brings up a good point too. Bringing the play clock down to 1 second is one thing, but doing it rushed and seem perplexed is a totally different other situation.
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely something, if you were to do it down to where you had control in a no-huddle type of offense and you're in control of the situation, and so is everybody else. Everybody else knows what they're supposed to do. That, at this point right now, seems to me like the only way that the Chargers offense would have any type of advantage, because I like the point you made in terms of the defense knowing what it is that you have to do if you're being rushed and getting down to those last 2 or 3 seconds to where you have to snap the ball. The defense can be ready for whatever it is that they're going to do. And if they know that you're rushed, they're going to bring the house to do whatever they can to put additional pressure on you. So if you could do it to where it's up-tempo, you've got them on their heels, and you can be in command of that clock, and especially with the other 10 guys that are out on that field with you, then you have an advantage. But it shouldn't take the up-tempo offense as the simple key in order to fix the Chargers' offensive problems, because they should be able to matriculate down the field, move as a team, get in and out of the huddle, and of course be time structured and be disciplined out there with the things that you're doing. If you move into another game that we just had with costly penalties on top of everything else, I honestly thought I was watching the Raiders offense last Sunday. It was that bad, what the Raiders offense used to look like.
The second place Raiders?
Well, hang on, let me correct myself. Not this year's Raiders, not last year's Raiders, 3 years ago Raiders. Just undisciplined football all the way around. So it needs to get fixed.
Got two questions for you, one from the chat room, one from Twitter. So we'll start with the chat room. Josh Hill, he points out, why do we have to why can't we start throwing the ball downfield? We never stretch the field unless we are behind. And the Chargers used to be very good at this, and maybe it was a Norv Turner thing, but we used to throw the ball deep a lot, and we'd make big play after big play down the field, and we don't anymore. It seems like, we're down by 2 touchdowns. We have to make something work, so they heave the ball up there and hope to make that big play. Why aren't we, like you said, Jake, coming out guns blazing from snap 1 and putting the pressure on the defense?
Because there is no discipline, and everything is falling off the wheel as before the game really even gets started. And he's absolutely right, though. We used to do that. We used to do that in the Norv Turner days, but you also had Marcus McNeil, Chris Dielman, Nick Hardwick on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. And with the way that the offensive problems are going right now, you can't have Phillip Rivers doing 7-step drops in order to wait for a play to matriculate, because you're going to have 2 or 3 defenders in his face before he puts him on the ground. And so I would love to see them to go a la Eric Coryell and go old school the way that they used to. Problem is that Phillip Rivers doesn't have the time anymore. The best way that he can beat opposing defenses right now with the way that the offensive line is working is by quick 2-step drops. Drill it out to a slot receiver. Get the short yardage. Do these quick passes that you see Tom Brady or Peyton Manning doing all the time. And if you do that, you're eventually going to get the defense to back off the blitz, and then you could possibly go deep when you see single coverage down the field. So it has to be, for the time being, it has to be done that way. You have to work the short way to the field in order to get the long bomb that you want down the field, hopefully in the end zone.
The second question, Jake, and thank you for all your insight. Geppetto, our old pal Geppetto on Twitter, he wants to know how soon until we see Cavell and Perryman get more snaps. Now, there's been a lot of people, publicly in social media, which Jason hates, that are, bashing on, Manti Te'o and, basically saying that, Perryman and Cavell, they need to get some more time. And we kind of in disagreement in the fact that, we remember when Manti Te'o was first out there and people were saying, he needs to, get off the field. He just doesn't, he looks lost. And so what are you going to expect when Cavell or Perryman get out there and they're not, got their feet wet yet? They're going to kind of be lost out there, where Manti Te'o right now, he's more reaction-based and he seems to be making plays, in my opinion. From what I see, Manti Te'o seems to be always in the right place. He might not be making the tackle, but he's getting an assist, and he's making stuff happen.
That's what I see. I really don't understand the public criticism on Te'o this year. I really don't. Donald Butler, on top of everything else, I think everybody seems to forget that while we lost that game, he did force a turnover in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And both of those guys have been playing hard. But let's not forget, this last game, we were missing 3/4 of our starting secondary. And Eric Weddle was in reality the only starter in that defensive secondary once Jason Verrett went out. Brandon Flowers was not out there, Jaleel O'Day was not out there, and eventually Jason Verrett was replaced by Stephen Williams. So the secondary was absolutely shredded apart when it came to injuries and surprise inactives. But as far as Cavell Connor and Denzel Perryman goes, I know everybody wants to see them in the packages, and Denzel's done a very good job on special teams so far. I think he's got actually one of the highest special teams tackle totals of anybody in the NFL. But I'll tell you when I'd like to see them in there. I'd like to see them in there when the defense has the opposing offense in a 3rd and 15 situation. But that hasn't happened lately. It's always been 3rd and short, and the defense can't get off on 3rd down. And that's the issue. So when it comes to situations like that, I am all for seeing Cavell Connor and Denzel Perryman out there for a shot to get to the quarterback. But until that happens, I'd much rather trust Manti Te'o or Donald Butler in those scenarios.
It's very, very tough to get to 3rd and 15 when they're working from 2nd and 3. And that's the issue, is we're giving up 6 and 7 yards rushing on 1st down. The Chargers this week, they waived Kyle Miller. Johnny Troutman, they put on IR. That was kind of an interesting move. I know that I wasn't a huge fan of his last year, but they were really holding out for him to come back. They finally gave up. And last week, people were talking about he was only 1 or 2 weeks away. Did they give up on him because he wasn't progressing as fast as they wanted to? Did they give up on him because they just ran out of time? Or did they give up on him because maybe we had talked about it in the preseason, maybe they didn't like where he was mentally? Do you have any idea about exactly why they decided to IR him?
Their hand was forced because of the injuries that happened to the offensive line in Minnesota. If none of that happened, you'd still see Troutman on the roster right now, probably 2 weeks away at most from returning to the roster and adding some very much needed depth to this offensive line, no matter what anybody thinks about him, but it is a body nonetheless. Their hand was pretty much forced. They had to make some moves because of who they have to predicate is not going to be there playing along the offensive line this week.
Hey, Jake, as far as the offensive line, anybody for sure out for this game, or is there still a lot of questionable question marks going into the Cleveland Browns game?
It's too early to tell. You really haven't heard anything as far as, we don't know if Chris Watt's going to be fully recovered from his groin injury that he re-aggravated. We don't know what the deal is with King Dunlap as far as his concussions, because we know that a couple of years ago he had problems with those. I think maybe the one you can rule out wholeheartedly is Orlando Franklin, because it's another injury that we're actually lucky that it wasn't as severe as it looked for him to not be out the rest of the season. So I think the damage was done to him enough to the point where you won't see him out there Sunday, and then Watt and Dunlap are definitely going to be question marks heading into this game against Cleveland.
Now, the Chargers, they did sign J.D. Waltman. He started 16 games for the Giants last season. Him and McCoy have a little bit of history. He started 36 games for the Broncos. Do you know much about him, and what is he kind of a stopgap, or is this a guy that they think might see some time this year on our offensive line?
This is an interesting move, I thought. And first off, I like the signing of J.D. Walton just because his familiarity with Mike McCoy's offense. He's a veteran type of guy. But you think about this. Maybe this could be a sign that they, especially with Troutman, a guard, being released, that Chris Watt goes back into his natural position at guard. Maybe you move forward with Trevor Robinson as your starting center. You have J.D. Walton, a true center, to back him up. And you move forward with your offensive line of Dunlap, Orlando Franklin, either J.D. Walton or Trevor Robinson as your center. You have DJ Fluker as your right guard, Joe Barksdale as your right tackle. However, if that combination continues to suffer, maybe you put Watt and Fluker in as right guard, right tackles, respectively. Or maybe Watt just stays as for the time being, a backup guard and be able to shift along either the left side or the right side. So this is an interesting move, and it's one to keep an eye on moving forward just as far as how they plan on using Watt when it comes forward. Because now, if you were to think about it, the Chargers possibly have 3 centers along their offensive line, and 2 are a lot more experienced than what Chris Watt is. So it would be interesting to see, once Chris Watt matriculates into the lineup, exactly how they plan on installing him into it again.
Well, I saw that, and I actually thought the same way as you. I was very excited because I always thought our most successful line would be Robinson at center and Watt moved over to guard, and then even shifting Fluker back out to tackle, which would be fine with me. And you kept saying they can't do it because they can't have both centers in the lineup. But with Waltman coming in to be the backup center, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I would really hope to see that happen because Barksdale right now, we brought him in and he's a swing guy and everything, but I don't know if our most successful line is with Barksdale as our starting tackle.
It hasn't proven to be that way so far. People have seemed to get around him very, very easily from the pass rushing standpoint. So, I think you're going to give it a little bit more time to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if either Barksdale and Fluker switch places, or you bring Watt back in at guard, you shift Fluker back out to right tackle, and Barksdale finds his place on the bench.
Now, Tyreek Burwell was promoted up to the roster. I know that we got a lot of injuries right now. I think this is a guy that the Chargers actually think pretty highly of and think that there's a future for him to be playing. Is this something that you think he's going to stick with the roster for the rest of the season, or do you think they're going to kind of bounce him back and forth between the practice squad and the regular squad? And the second part of that question, do you see a future with Tyreek Burwell as a starting tackle for the San Diego Chargers, maybe in a year or two?
I think it's too early to tell. I think this Sunday will be a great, a great glimpse of what he could be, albeit he plays well. But this is what actually worries me about this Sunday. We've already just addressed how badly Barksdale has been struggling on the right side of the ball. If King Dunlap does not start, and you have Tyreek Burwell active on your roster as one of your tackles, you could now be seeing Joe Barksdale on the left side covering Phillip Rivers' blind side of the ball, and Tyreek Burwell on the right side manning the right tackle position. So I don't think the Chargers are going to put an undrafted free agent in on the left side of the ball to protect their quarterback. You're obviously going to go with experience there. But imagine what that offensive line is going to look like. That's what worries me more than anything right there as far as protection goes for Phillip Rivers. So it'd be nice to see a good performance out of Burwell. We don't obviously know where they're going to put him yet, but, hold on to your hats for what we're going to see along the offensive line on Sunday.
Now, depending on the answer to this question, we'll decide which direction the rest of this is going to go. First of all, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10, are you available to join the show and talk offense or defense with us this Sunday?
I'm available, and I should be in much better spirits considering the game is not at 10 a.m. This time. So, we'll be ready to go. We'll probably have a lot more time to discuss certain things considering the game's at 1.
I'll still be sleepwalking.
As usual. Well, then that's fantastic. So we won't. I'm not going to ask you for prediction today. You won't have to do that, but you will have to be ready for that on Sunday because we are going to get you to give us that. A lot of talk in our chat room right now about how upset everybody is with all the coaches. Do you see any chance? We talked about Frank Reich. Maybe we gave him the pass last year. He seems to be struggling with the play calling. What percentage chance do you see of McCoy taking over play calling duties on Sunday? Is that even a remote possibility? And maybe not this Sunday, but at some point this year if things don't change?
No, and I don't see that because of what you might remember McCoy saying when he was first installed his first year as head coach when Ken Whisenhunt was the offensive coordinator. He was very respectful of what Whisenhunt did for the offense, and he didn't, want to be that type of coach that had his hand in almost everything. He didn't want to be like a Norv Turner type of thing, and I think that was one of the aspects that we actually liked about him is that he let his offense and his defensive coordinator do their thing, and he did everything that he needed to do to help manage the team as a whole. So I don't see that happening. I definitely do see a pink slip coming for Frank Reich if nothing gets righted during the course of the season. And we can't possibly know about what we would do for a head coach. Would we go for a whole regime change if if the season goes completely down the toilet? We don't know. But if Frank Reich can't do something to right the ship on the offensive side of the ball, it's definitely going to be a long season.
Something from Trav the Mayor Trav the Mayor, he's in the chat room, and he's his last few sentences have been fire this guy, fire that guy. He wants them all gone. But here's the question he wants. Do you think that, first of all, do you think McCoy should be fired? And the second part of that is do you think that he is on the hot seat, and if they continue playing like they're playing now, do you think it's possible that they're going to look in a different direction?
I think he's on the hot seat for sure. And, if they continue to keep playing the way they're playing, naturally everybody's blame goes towards the head coach. And, it was natural to do that with Norv because he was, running the offense as well as everything else. So it was easy to point fingers in his direction. We obviously know that the regime with Tom Telesco and Mike McCoy so far has been a very good one. It has not been strained as it has been in the past when you've had A.J. Smith as the general manager. So I think, depending on how the season goes, it'd be a very difficult decision for someone like that to lay upon, and especially, possibly let somebody else go scot-free if you're really just going to fire one guy. I think if Mike McCoy goes, I think Frank Reich would be right behind him. I think you would possibly need a whole revamp of the offense. So I see it more as Frank Reich has a higher chance of possibility of being set out of San Diego than Mike McCoy does as of this moment right now. But I think that option is still very, very realistically on the table.
So we never talked about this, but Mike Nolan been brought in to help on the linebacking core. He has head coaching experience. Let's say this does happen, which I don't see it happening, at least not during the regular season. But let's say it does. Would Mike Nolan be the first person in the remaining coaches to take over as interim?
Well, you'd have to be talking about firing McCoy mid-season, which I don't see it happening. Yeah. I think if any firing was going to happen, it would come at the end of the season. And then, of course, at that time, possibly other coaching candidates would be considered, and I'm sure Mike Nolan would have his name in the hat. But I'm glad you brought up Mike Nolan for not only that reason, but for the fact we haven't talked about the linebackers position and the lack of pass rush all night tonight. And I'm wondering where it's at.
We haven't, but we did before you came on.
We did before. My theory on that is the fact that the other teams we've been playing have been playing with a lead, and they we haven't had really much opportunity to pass rush. That's kind of the way I look at it. I think that if we can get ourselves a lead and force them to actually be in a passing situation, I think that we're going to see a lot more success out of our linebackers.
Josh brought it up earlier that we only have 1 sack through 3 games, which I think is a concern. But at the same time, we have the number 3 passing defense in the league, which I thought our secondary was going to be good, but I didn't think statistically we'd be that good early on in the season.
I think those stats are a little bit skewed when you look at how these teams have actually beat us. And it's because that they've been well balanced, not only through the air, but on the ground as well. You know, our run defense, if you look at that on the other side of the ball, it is not good, especially after the shellacking that Adrian Peterson just put on us last Sunday. So the defense as a whole needs to get shored up. But we were always talking about the past years of saying, well, Melvin Ingram was out, well, Jerry Atauchi was out, when one of the guys comes back, you know, they'll be able to generate something. The only sack that is credited on this team so far is to a 5th-round rookie. It's not even to the veteran linebackers that are on this team. That's what disturbs me more than anything. Melvin Ingram, we were supposed to expect would be an absolute game changer, look like a beast in preseason. And he's gone nowhere. He's done nothing. And neither has Jerry Atauchi. And there needs to be some pass rush generated from somewhere else. If it's not going to be the linebackers, it needs to be done from somewhere else.
Well, I hope that we get a chance this weekend to see the real pass rush. I think that we come out. I hope that we come out, we establish ourselves a little bit of a lead, and then next week we're talking about a whole lot of other things besides the same crappy problems that we've had for all 3 games so far this year.
Look, if there's any better remedy for sickness right now, it is the Cleveland Brown offense, especially if Josh McCown is starting this week, because the stats say when he is rushed by 4 or more passers, his passer rating and interception ratio goes up, his pass rating goes down. He is not the type of guy that can elude people. He can get rattled very easily back there. And again, let's go back to Cleveland's run defense. I know I said it last week as far as Melvin Gordon getting going. If he doesn't get going in this game with a Browns defense that's giving up 160 yards per game, then you really don't know what is going to happen with this Chargers team moving forward.
Well, Jake, I hope that your earlier comments as far as us getting out there fast, winning the coin toss, taking the offense out on the field right away, and establishing our presence, I really hope that rings true, because something needs to change. This offense, who was supposed to be the bright spot of this team, you know, so many weapons. We talk about so many weapons. They need to really get out there and establish their dominance. They need to move up and down that field, put points on the board, and let our defense run rampant, because the other flip side of the coin is our offense isn't moving the ball, and our defense is out there all day long,
playing on their heels,
and they're not able to be as aggressive because they're getting tired. They're out there consistently, and our offense needs to help them out by putting some points on the board and holding onto the ball.
Yeah, that's basically the simple formula. And this week, it's a simple formula to beat Cleveland and right the ship and get some positive momentum for your entire team moving forward, because your next 4 games, actually the next 3 after Cleveland, are no walks in the park. So if you happen to drop this one Sunday to Cleveland, you're in for a long, long season.
Yeah. Josh uses the term must win. I hate that term. I'm not going to use that term now, but this is a big game. I will say
the Raiders are ahead of us, Jason. It's a must win.
That's not as much.
Yes.
That's not as much of a concern as what Jake just said. If we lose this game, it is a real uphill climb.
Oh, it is
to make something happen.
It is. Statistically speaking, 0-3 teams starting the season have like a 2% chance of making the playoffs. 1-3's got to be in that same category.
The good news is it's going to be 1 o'clock. We'll all have our food ready. We'll have a couple cool beers there, and we won't be just waking up. And hopefully, the Chargers won't be just waking up at kickoff.
So, Jake, we're going to.
Listen, I don't want to have to take a beer or a shot of bourbon after the game. That's what I'm worried about.
Yes.
I just want to talk about some positive stuff next Wednesday. That's all I ask about.
So,
I just want to be positive. All this negativity is bringing me down.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've already lost 3 games this season. We've already lost, we haven't lost all 3 of them, but 3 games are gone already. We don't have, the season's almost a quarter over already. We need to get things going. We need to start winning, and we need to start talking about fun stuff.
So, Jake, the pressure's on, buddy. We're gonna give you a little bit of a gift. Okay, you don't have to make your prediction
today.
However, you better be ready come Sunday morning.
I already have, it's funny. As much as I don't like that segment, I actually came prepared for it tonight because it's so simple. It is so simple, and it's bits and pieces of what I've said in past weeks as far as how to win a game. Because nothing of what I've said or what I've written about the last 2 weeks for 5 things that the Chargers needed to do to beat Cincinnati or Minnesota, not one of them happened. And it's a very simple formula this week against Cleveland. If they can't do that, I don't know what to say.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing that. I want to get in depth Sunday morning. I love the fact that you're joining us Sunday morning. It makes the Sunday morning conversation so much more interesting. So we definitely look forward to talking to you Sunday, discussing what the Chargers are going to do to win. And until then, Jake, as always, we appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you.
Thanks, guys. See you Sunday.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right.
So that was Jake Hefner from ProFootballSpot.com with Jake's Take, talking everything Chargers football. He will be with us Sunday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. for our pregame show, Chargers versus the Cleveland Browns, this Sunday at 1 o'clock. Join us, 9 to 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. Until then, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more Chargers football.
Some fantasy, too.
Oh, yeah, I got to play Jason this week, so I might finally get a win.
I think you might.
We're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we're going to open up those phone lines as well, 619-866-4567. The chat room is going off. We want to hear your point of take with this Chargers football team right after the break. This is Josh and Mikey from the San Diego Sports Junkies. We are teaming up with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of San Diego County to make a difference in kids' lives.
In 2014, Big Brothers Big Sisters provided more than 1,700 children with supportive mentoring relationships that created a positive change in their lives.
This year, our goal is to make a difference by giving more than 1,800 children a big brother or a big sister.
You can do your part by going to SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com and purchasing one of our One Before I Die t-shirts, where we will donate 20% of every purchase to this great cause.
For more information on how you can become a big brother or big sister, visit sdbigs.org and help the San Diego Sports Junkies make a difference in a child's life today.
Cali Comfort Barbecue in Spring Valley was built for West Coast Sunday morning football and fight night. Cali Comfort Barbecue has quickly become San Diego's slow smoke barbecue sports entertainment destination. Full service catering available for all your tailgating needs. CaliComfortSD.com.
Team pride, we love our team. San Diego Chargers. Then you tell me who comes harder? Our city, our team. What's next? Super Bowl rings. We charge our fans for life. We die hard for life. That's right. We both up worldwide from SD all the way to overseas.
So one thing we learned playing fantasy football for the San Diego Sports Junkies League is our fans know a hell of a lot more about fantasy football than we do. Me and Jason are both 0-3. We got Justin sitting here at 2-1, so he's admirable.
Yeah.
And then Mikey sitting at 2-1 as well. Mikey's technically not one of the sports junkies anymore.
He's always going to be a sports junkie.
So I mean, we got less than 500 record against our fellow sports junkies fans that listen in, and now me and Jason, something's got to give. We can't go 0-4. Somebody's got to win this week, Jason.
Well, we'll talk a little bit since we're the only two here. Let's talk about our matchup. We're both 0-3. First of all, I spent a whole lot of last season and the year before, and ever since we've really been doing this show about how I hate fantasy football. I hate fantasy football not because I'm 0-3. I'm not trying to cry because I'm 0-3, because I realize that I suck. I hate fantasy football because I hate rooting for non-Chargers. I hate it. I hate all other teams besides the Chargers. I hate all other players besides Chargers. So when I have to root for other players besides Chargers, it upsets me. And obviously I drafted very poorly. I don't want to blame it on the auto draft. Last week I played SoCal Trav, who ended up, for some reason, not being able to draft. His team got auto drafted. He started, it wasn't last week, it was 2 weeks ago. He started Brian Hoyer at quarterback, who isn't even starting right now, and he still beat me. So I'm thinking, well, at least I got one win because I'm playing SoCal, and he seems to have kind of mailed it in a little bit. I put a lot of eggs in the Eagles basket. I saw what the Eagles were doing in the preseason, and I expected a lot of points out of them. And I got, Sam Bradford as my quarterback, and I got DeMarco Murray as my running back. DeMarco Murray is injured. There we go. There's Steve-O. DeMarco Murray is injured, and I got Sam Bradford, who might as well be because he's playing like he's injured. And we actually have the fantasy guru on the phone right now. Steve-O, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, sports junkies?
Well, Steve-O, we're telling everybody how, you and the rest of the Sports Junkies fans are kicking the Sports Junkies' asses. Me and Jason face off in a 0-3 matchup, the toilet bowl matchup, number 11 and number 12 in the division, and I have Andrew Suck as my starting quarterback.
Well, luckily for you guys, that it's only week 4 out of a 13-week fantasy regular season.
So tell me I can turn this around.
Well, I mean, Josh, with Andrew Luck, the only problem with owning Luck is what it cost you to get Luck, right? It was your first overall pick. So the value that passed you by, for instance, we have a team in the league that has a wide receiver duo of Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. Okay, so when suckers like us were in a 2-quarterback league,
which I've never been in,
we had to go try to get a QB. We had to try to go get a QB early, and there was tons of wide receiver value that was falling down the board. So it'll be turned around easily as soon as Luck gets back on track. There's a lot of like sneaky waiver wire pickups going on right now too. Carlos Williams, running back out of Buffalo. Michael Vick is like a sneaky, could be a really fun start over there in Pittsburgh. So that could end your quarterback well. Not that you're going to pick up Michael Vick and start him over Andrew Luck, but I'm just saying the options there.
So here's one thing that I am doing, because on the flip side, I got Andrew Suck, and I also have Andre Johnson, who's been sucking eggs as well. So I went out on a limb and picked up Rashard Matthews from the Miami Dolphins, who seems to have been playing well early in the season. Do you think that can continue?
Yes, I do. Well, it's obvious. It's no secret. The apple of Ryan Tannehill's eye is always going to be Jarvis Landry. But Matthews has a ton of upside because Miami seems to be playing from behind. So the entire second half, they all but abandon the run, and Tannehill is forced to throw the ball as much as possible. He doesn't always get out of the pocket, doesn't always get the passes off without being picked off, but Rashard Matthews does have a high ceiling. He has a low floor. That's the problem with Matthews. His floor is low because he could go put a donut up there for you for sure. But his ceiling, he has the team that he's on and the scheme that Miami's running, I mean, he has the ability to put up some mega fantasy stats from week to week, but it's not consistent.
You know, one of the people, it was one of my later picks, but I ended up drafting late, Roddy White, and unfortunately for me, I didn't realize that he retired 3 weeks ago. Am I going to get any more points out of Roddy White this year, or should I just move on?
You know, Roddy is an aging wide receiver, but the thing is, okay, we can't talk with age because look at what Steve Smith did last weekend.
No kidding.
Did you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Unreal, right? 13 catches, $180, and two touchdowns. So Roddy is just, I don't know, man. He's kind of taking a backseat to Julio for sure. He's not as involved as he once was. I don't know if you got to suspect there's a little bit of a nagging injury or something going on there, but it also seems like Atlanta's trying to be a little more balanced now also with as far as the run and pass game because they have two very competent running backs back there. Obviously, Kevin Coleman is out on injury right now, but he'll be back. But we all saw what Devontae Freeman did last week, and also 3 touchdown rushes. I mean, so they're trying to balance it out. So what that means for Roddy is the amount of pass attempts, the amount of looks that he's going to get in the pass game is going to go down. And Julio's looks aren't going to go down. They're going to be the same. Even if they did go down, that just means he's going to catch a higher percentage because the guy, Julio Jones, is money. Roddy is just not. Roddy, I don't know. I suspect there's an injury. If I were you, Roddy White's almost, with the numbers he's putting up right now, Jason, he's almost not rosterable. But he does have the name Roddy White, and we're playing with some newbies in the fantasy league. So if I were you, I would trickle it out there for some trade bait.
Yeah, I'm just upset because I've got a donut from him 2 weeks in a row, and he's been playing. But I'm like the gambler who goes who chases his money. I would sure hate to let him go and then see him put up 20 points one week.
Yeah, but if he did it 1 week, Jay, that's cool. That means if you got something in return that's more of a consistent starter, I mean, 20 points 1 week isn't going to win you a championship.
Right.
But 10 points every week out of someone else will.
Hey,
so just know that.
Trav. Wow, Steve-O. My bad. I'm looking at our chat room here. Another name to throw out there, and this is just on, and maybe you can shed some light as far as fantasy is concerned. Marshawn Lynch has been battling injuries. He hasn't really done a whole lot of anything for the first 3 games.
My first pick, by the way.
he in the most recent game actually went out. The hamstring injury actually took him out of the game. Now the biggest pickup right now in a lot of leagues is Thomas Rawls, who comes in and rattles off 104 yards on 16 carries. With somebody picking him up like that, is it kind of just ride the wave until Marshawn Lynch gets back, or is this a one-hit wonder?
Sure. Marshawn, okay, no, it's beast mode's beast mode. Just like earlier I mentioned the name Carlos Williams. Carlos is supplanting LaShawn McCoy while LaShawn's trying to battle back from injury, right? And so this rookie in Seattle is not going to take the place of beast mode, okay? The problem is there's injuries all over the league. This has been probably one of the craziest fantasy years I've seen in, I'm not kidding you, probably 5 years. I haven't seen anything like this. Like, as many stars being so hobbled up, all these first-round picks in your fantasy draft are literally producing 0 for you. So, unfortunately, it's just been one of those years, man. I went and, in our league, a 2-quarterback league, I drafted Drew Brees. He's done garbage all year, and then he missed last week. So, I mean, what do you do, right?
Right.
So, no, you don't. I mean, if you want to go pick up that rookie in Seattle, you could. Marshawn, but if I were you, the thing is in Seattle, too, Seattle as a whole right now is not producing any stats. Russell Wilson is not putting up top 15 quarterback numbers. Jimmy Graham had 1 good week out of 3. So you're talking he's supposed to be the number 2 tight end in the league, and he's had 1 okay fantasy week in 3 weeks. So there's just nobody really. I guess the most consistent thing in Seattle, besides fantasy failure, has been return touchdowns out of Tyler Lockett. If he's available in your league and rewards return yards, I would look into that guy for sure.
Another name to throw out there, and this is coming from the Kansas City Green Bay game. Jeremy Maclin finally bursted the touchdown bubble for wide receivers for Kansas City. Can he continue to be a successful player, and where would you place him in your lineup? Would he be a wide receiver 2, a wide receiver 3? Would be a flex guy? What's your opinion on Jeremy Maclin?
To be honest, he's more of a wide receiver 3 or flex guy just because of the passing volume of Kansas City. They regardless, they're still a more run-based offense, and they have probably the second best pass-catching tight end in the league with Travis Kelce, and then they have, I would arguably, the best pass-catching running back in the league with Jamal Charles. So the problem is Alex Smith doesn't have to push that ball downfield. What happened on Monday was, Kansas City being so far behind, there was a little more sense of urgency to get the ball downfield a little farther than these, 10-yard dump offs up the middle to Charles or to Kelce. So, would I say that Monday is a 1-week wonder for Maclin? No, I think he's going to put up, decent stats throughout the year. And again, in these PPR leagues, the nice thing is we're not touchdown dependent. So even if Maclin with the rest of the year without a touchdown, if he's still catching, just in the fourth quarter like he did, if he's still catching five passes for 80 yards, that's a very serviceable fantasy league. So that's again another benefit of PPR. So Maclin, again, to get back to that, Maclin is probably on my scale. He's more like a wide receiver 3 flex guy, and he'll have his good weeks like he did Monday night, and then he'll have weeks that he was barely flex worthy for you. But he is the best receiver on the team. He's already shown that he's developed some trust with Alex Smith. So if Alex Smith can stay upright, we know that Maclin can get downfield in a hurry and catch that ball.
Our particular league is a 12-team PPR league. We have 2 quarterbacks. We only have 4 bench spots, and we have an individual defensive player that we have to choose. With 12 teams in our league and only 4 bench spots, most of these teams don't have a defensive player on their bench, which means there's only 12 defensive players that are on rosters. Can you give us some defensive players that maybe people might want to look at that might be able to get them some points? Because just about all of them are going to be available.
Oh yeah, shoot, you can go team by team. There's a lot of value with the IDP position. One of this kind of a shocking one is Sean Lee in Dallas is available in like 60% of Yahoo leagues, which is crazy to me because he is the most valuable defensive player on Dallas's team right now. And so there could be a whole list. I don't have it like printed out in front of me. That's like the name that stood out. And I was actually reading about it today. I'm like, dude, Sean Lee, that guy puts up like 10 tackles and a sack like every game this season, and he's still available in 60% of leagues because everyone is still tied into the big name guys, Luke Kuechly, DeQuell Jacksons, the Paul Warlows. There's other names out there.
J.J. Watt.
That can, yeah, what's funny about J.J. Watt is he fantasy wise, he's not a bone crusher like he is actually on field. Like he's hands down the best defensive player in the league for the last like 3 years. But fantasy wise, it doesn't always calculate out that way. You know what I'm saying? The stats aren't always there. So you pretty much just want the guys that are going to get their tackle, get their 1 point per tackle, or if you're in a league that does reward for return yards, make sure you pick up some sort of cornerback or DB that returns punts and kickoffs, and he can get you points that way. But there's a ton of names, Jay, and I mean if I had a minute, I could probably try to look it up on the phone while I'm talking to you guys. But the one that stood out to me is Sean Lee. But pretty much anybody on the roster in Carolina is a good pickup right now, and anyone on the roster in Arizona. Those guys, Carolina and Arizona's defenses are nasty right now, just completely nasty. They're wrecking offensive lines, and so I'd seriously look at Arizona and Carolina. Any of the linebackers on either one of those teams will put up 8 to 10 fantasy points every week.
Steve-O, as far as position players, and I'll use tight end as an example, you have Roethlisberger go down. You have Tony Romo go down.
Drew Brees. You
got Drew Brees go down. But I'm thinking tight ends mainly. You got the likes of
Jason
Witten and Heath Miller. Are these guys that you need to be concerned about with their starting quarterbacks out, or will they still get a bulk of their work even with the backups?
You would think that actually, so common sense says actually no, you shouldn't be worried about them because they're more of the seasoned pass catchers on the team. Heath Miller is a security blanket for Ben Roethlisberger, as Witten is for Romo, right? However, with the shaky quarterback situations on both those teams right now, you got Michael Vick throwing the ball in Pittsburgh, and then you got Brandon Weeden in Dallas. So how much trust does Weeden have with Witten, and how is Vick going to connect with Heath Miller? I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel that Witten and Heath Miller are going to be suffering huge from the quarterback hit for sure.
Steve-O, we got about 4 minutes left here in the fantasy chat. Give us some pointers, for not only for us, but give us some pointers for the people listening in as far as fantasy football. Any sleepers, anything of that people need to pay attention to over the next couple weeks?
I guess the biggest what I've kind of found myself doing is I've stacked. I'm doing 4 leagues this year, and what I tend to do on all the leagues, even in the ones with the short bench, Jason, I know that's kind of hurting some guys, but I've really targeted some solid running back, the backups, like the number 2s, because we've all seen it. It's already played out this year 3 times, between 3 weeks. Starting running backs are getting hurt, they're going down, and they're not putting up stats. So I would target the backups. Denver, Ronnie Hillman has already shown in the preseason what he can do if he's given the full boat. And T.J. Anderson is not really, shown up at all through 3 weeks. So Ronnie Hillman is someone to target. Carlos Williams over there in Buffalo, a very run-heavy scheme that they have going on their offense. And LaShawn McCoy is a little banged up. Carlos Williams is right there to be a great backup. Also, the best backup to always have is probably Nile Davis over there in Kansas City, because if Jamal Charles ever goes down, that guy Davis has already proven that he's there to pick up the rock and literally put up damn near the same stats as Jamal Charles. So as far as any sleepers, there's not really any sneaky ones coming up this week. There really isn't. Keep in mind, Martavius Bryant is going to be coming back for our Pittsburgh here after this week. So if he's available on the waiver wire, I'd go pick him up now so that you could start him in week 5. The guy is a beast, and no matter who's throwing the ball, you got a 6'5", 230 target flying downfield. That's always a nice blanket to throw to. Antonio Brown is obviously the guy, and he always will be the guy. But Antonio Brown, the problem is he can't always go up and get the ball in those tight situations. Antonio Brown is a more like a speed demon. Martavius Bryant is a freaking beast, and that's a nice thing for a quarterback to know that he has downfield. That if he puts an air ball up there up for grabs, that he's going to have someone come down with it. So go grab Martavius Bryant off your waiver wire. Look for some decent running back backups on some good run-heavy offenses like Seattle, like Buffalo, like Kansas City. The list goes on and on.
Steve-O, James Jones, is he a can't miss?
Dude, I tell you what, I don't know why he never left. I don't know. I still don't know why he ever left Green Bay. Obviously, it was a money thing, but dude, him and Rodgers has so much confidence in James Jones, and that guy, you can literally start him every week confidently is probably a wide receiver 2 or 3, just knowing that he's probably going to score once, at like a minimum, because all that guy does is catch touchdown passes, you know?
So
especially with Devontae, was it, who just went out in Green Bay? Was it Devontae Adams?
I think
he's in Miami.
No.
Is it Adams?
I think it was Adams.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know Ty Montgomery is kind of banged up, so right now, like, Aaron Rodgers literally, and it was shown Monday night, he's got one guy to throw to right now. It's Randall Cobb. So James Jones is not a fly-by-night guy. He is a staple in that offense there, and whenever he's on the field, there's a good bet, 50-50 chance the ball's getting thrown his way. So especially with Jordy Nelson out for the year, James Jones is a solid guy to have on your team. He should be owned in every fantasy league for sure. There's no way that guy should be available.
So one of my fantasy leagues, I have hold on, let me pull up here. Calvin Johnson, Emmanuel Sanders, Keenan Allen, Landry, and James Jones. Of those 4 guys, if you have to put 3 of them in the start and 1 at the flex, who's the odd man out?
So Calvin, Landry, Jones, and who else? Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen, Sanders. So Calvin Johnson, Emmanuel Sanders, Keenan Allen, Landry, and James Jones.
I got to be honest, and this hurts my heart to say it, but you'd have to leave Keenan Allen on the bench just because of we don't really know how our Chargers are playing right now. You know, it's shaky, and Keenan Allen, he's our number 1 guy, but he's not Vincent Jackson number 1 that Phillip could just air the ball out to. You know what I'm saying? Keenan Allen is a guy that needs separation. He's a speed demon, but he needs to not get banged up there at within that 5 yards of the line. So honestly, I would start Calvin, Emmanuel, James Jones, and
Landry.
And who?
Landry.
Yeah, Landry. Landry's a no-brainer. He's the go-to guy. Is it a PPR league?
Yep.
Oh yeah, hands down. You'd have to. It'd be a toss-up then between Jones and Keenan Allen, to tell you the truth, if it's PPR, because Allen always gets his looks, but Jones is a touchdown magnet. So PPR league, you could literally flip a coin.
So it's a matchup basis.
And it's kind of a matchup basis for sure, but your starters are definitely Emmanuel Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and Landry, like hands down.
So you got this week at Cleveland, Keenan Allen. Home against Cleveland with Keenan Allen. At San Francisco, James Jones. Who are you picking if it's your team?
James Jones is at San Francisco?
Yep.
I have a feeling that Green Bay is going to get out to a nice early lead and not need to throw the ball. I always like Keenan Allen at home for sure.
Sounds good, Steve-O. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to call in, and we hope we can make a regular appearance, not only to talk a little bit about our fantasy league, but kind of give some insight to everybody else out there and make them a winner as well.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, the league's going really well. I think there's just been some bad luck on your guys' end, but like I said, it's still earlier in the season. We have 10 more weeks of regular season fantasy play. So
I'm going 10-0.
Don't say an 0-3 start. I bounced back myself from the same start and finished second going into the league, and then had a nice strong run in the playoffs. So it's very doable. All the teams are strong. You guys all have some stellar players that are just kind of a little slow start. Marshawn Lynch is going to get back to beast mode. He's probably the most consistent running back in the league. That's the thing with Marshawn. He's not going to blow up and put up 50 points in the PPR league, but he's a consistent 15, 20 point a week guy, and that's what you want on your team is that consistent player that's going to get you through to the end. So everyone has a chance to bounce back for sure. I wouldn't get worried yet. Don't do no garage sale, yard sale with all your players yet. But if you can get value for some guys that aren't stepping up, then I'd say go ahead and do it. For instance, like I said, Jason, Roddy White, if you have a chance to go ahead and dump him off and get something for him in return, an every week 10-point player, I would suggest doing that. Hold on to Marshawn. He'll be fine. And Jason, definitely don't get rid of Andrew Luck. He'll be fine.
Don't worry. As much as Luck sucks for me through week 3, it can't stay this way. He was too good last year. He's going to put it back together. He's got weapons. It's going to click. It's kind of like the Chargers. You know, the Chargers have been struggling, but eventually that offense is going to click, and they're gonna be dangerous. So I'm not too worried.
Totally. I would, but Josh, on that same point though, I would definitely get rid of Andre Johnson while you can still get some value for him, because it's pretty apparent that the guy is catching the ball for Luck or T.Y. Hilton and Moncrief. So if you can get some value for Johnson, I'm not saying I want him. I don't. But if you can get some value for him, then cool. And if you want to go ahead and try to wheel and deal and get some depth on your team a little bit, I'll send you a little something for Andrew Luck tonight, actually.
I bet you will.
Nice.
All right, guys.
We look forward to hearing from you each week, Steve.
Yes, sir. All right, gentlemen. Have a good night.
You too.
Later, buddy. So it was nice to have Steve on there because, I want to say I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to fantasy football. I mean, I've watched football my whole life.
Yeah.
I do have a good feel.
You want to say that, but we've seen your team.
I've had a good feel of things. That's one team out of 4 leagues, Jason. But he brings a lot of truth, and he thinks a lot deeper into things as far as who's the quarterback, what kind of defense are they playing against? You know, is this a run-stopping defense? Well, this running back is probably not a good matchup. And that's the thing, I get, and Justin calls me out all the time, I get stuck on projections a lot. I think I let, these Yahoo leagues and everything think for me. Mm-hmm. And when I got a guy that's projected for 15 points, but he's playing against one of the best defenses in the league, and then somebody else who's got 8 points and they're playing against a shitty, defense with a great quarterback, you might want to take the gamble on the cheaper projection just for, that gut feeling is going to put up big points.
You know what? When we drafted our league, what I did was I wanted to make sure that I drafted a team that each week I could fill my roster. So I made sure that the 4 bench spots that I had were guys that had different bye weeks than my regulars, because I wanted to go through the season without having to do any drops or doing very many drops and adds, without doing any trades.
It's hard, though.
The only thing that I'm going to have to make some movement on is, of course, defense, kicker, and my defensive player. The rest of the players I have on my team, I have guys that can fill in without having to do that, and that's what I think I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to try and make it through the whole year with my main core guys without doing any drops and trades, and go with the horses that I drafted. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. We're doing it for fun, and we're doing this mostly to interact with people who support our show. So that's the fun part. The fun part is playing in a league with other people who have been listening for a while, and and that's the fun part of it, because honestly, like I said before, I'm not a huge fantasy guy, but the interaction part of it is actually pretty fun.
Right.
So, before we go tonight, the Padres did announce that, next year is going to be Dick Enberg's last season. Is that correct?
Yep. He's basically part-time in it. He's part-time in it, and there's is it Rick Osilio? Mm-hmm. Coming over from the Boston Red Sox that's going to fill in, when Dick Enberg takes a day off or a week off, and he's going to be the regular guy come 2017, I'm assuming, alongside Mark Grant. Also, I can't remember who the guy is that's on the radio, tall, skinny guy that's on the radio. He is stepping down, and we got a phone call.
SoCal
Good.
Trav is on the phone.
Thank God you interrupted me from my friggin' brain deadness.
What's up there, SoCal?
What's up, fellas?
What's up, man?
So first of all, how's your fantasy team doing?
Sucks because I had auto draft and wasn't able to draft. What do you expect?
I think you're like 2-1.
I don't even know what I am. I'm not even following it right now.
You're 2-1. I'm 0-3. You've already beat me. Josh is 0-3. You auto drafted and you're 2-1. You gotta jump in there and start doing some stuff with it, man. You're in the playoffs, I think, right now.
And pay me your money.
Yeah. Oh, and send Josh
Yeah.
$20 because you still owe Josh $20.
Well, I'll just give it to him this weekend at the game. So.
Nice. So what's your thoughts so far? I know that you're pretty angry with the way things are going, and you want everybody to be fired and stuff. But honestly, if they start making big giant coaching moves right now, that's pretty much saying we've given up on the season. What's your formula for the Chargers maybe fixing this and turning it around?
Well, I honestly think they should seriously not allow Frank Reich to call the offensive plays. The guy is an absolute idiot. He can't make calls. He's not gutsy enough. I mean, and the thing that makes me bad about that is that Mike McCoy used to be an offensive coordinator. He knows how to make game calls. Yeah, you're a head coach, but you can also decide what goes out on that field. You are the head coach. That is your job. If your offensive coordinator is not doing their job, then something needs to be done. And let Mike call him, or just kick Frank Reich right out that front door and let him be unemployed because he sucks.
It's interesting you say that, Trav, and the thing I look back on is Norv Turner. I know, Jake made a comment about Norv having an offensive coordinator, but he really didn't. Norv not only was the offensive coordinator, but he was also the head coach. And, Andy Reid up there in Kansas City is the same thing. He not only is he the offensive coordinator, but he's the head coach. And it's doable. But I think, a lot of things that people used to complain about Norv is he was focusing so much on the offense that he couldn't do his job as far as, handling the team and managing the time accurately. So when you got double duty, that is a little bit of a concern. But I agree with you. I think Frank Reich is definitely got to be sitting on hot water.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say let's get rid of Frank Reich. I've always actually been a little bit of a supporter of his, but I do think he needs to step his game up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
He just doesn't have any. He's not gutsy enough. He's not utilizing what he's got. He's got some dangerous offensive weapons. He's just not utilizing these guys. I mean, look at Gordon. I mean, he had some great runs this past weekend in Cincinnati, but yet he's still not really giving him an opportunity to run the ball. And I just think it's really shoddy. It's shoddy play calling on the offensive side of the ball, and something has to be changed. I don't think if we lose this weekend to the Cleveland Browns, the season's done. I mean, there's no way we're going to come down. We're not going to come back with 3 losses. We'll be done, especially out of the AFC West. And I think Frank Reich will have no job if we lose on Sunday and we don't put up some points on the board.
Well, I do definitely think it's a big game, and it's a very important game, and it'd be very worrisome if we lost. I don't want to say I'm ready to say we're done 4 games into the year because I just can't do that. You know me. If you've been listening to the show, you know how I was with the Padres all year long. I'm just not willing to say that it's all over until it's finally over. But I am a little bit concerned about this game. I am concerned about how important the game is. And I do think that Frank Reich does need to, I mean, I don't know. What do we want to say? Coordinate better? He does need to step up. And I think that he needs to, it's really easy for me to shout at the TV from my couch. But one of the things I'm screaming is make them pay when they blitz. If we don't make them pay when they blitz, they're just going to keep doing it, and they're going to keep doing it. And and it doesn't seem like we're making them pay when they blitz.
And like Josh Hill said earlier in the show in the chat room, we're not going deep enough. We're not making that defense honest by taking big shots down the field. If we continue to play this, small ball, as I call it, running game, a lot of draw plays, a lot of slant patterns, we got to open up the offense a little bit and make them think twice. That's going to not only help the passing game, but that's going to help open up these holes for Gordon to gash through.
Hello?
Oh, you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, there you are. Lost you for a second.
Yeah, I got you.
So,
I agree with you on that too. But honestly, you guys, this offensive line has not performed well either, and we're already injured again.
Right.
And it really has not been a solid offensive line since Hardwick was at center, and he really had that offensive line in check. And we have to protect Phillip Rivers. We got to give him some time to allow him to pass deep down the field. I mean, if you've got guys blitzing off the corners or up the middle, and our offensive line isn't stopping these guys, he's not going to have any time to throw the ball. He's just going to have to throw it away or rush the pass, and rushing the pass can also lead to INTs.
Hey.
So we thought this offensive line was going to be great this year. I mean, on paper, they're a monster of an offensive front, but they're performing like a Pop Warner team on the offensive line.
Yeah, they're definitely not healthy. I don't think this is legal, Trav, but since our offensive line sucks, why can't we go street football? Let's just have we'll have our center hike the ball to Phillip Rivers. We'll have 8 wide receivers and 2 running backs, and good luck trying to stop us that way. Because I mean, we can't block anybody, so we might as well just throw extra wide receivers out there for Phillip Rivers to throw to.
I agree with you, and it's a shame that we haven't been able to, and and that obviously falls back on more coaching problems.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like this coaching staff is just they're horrendous. I hate to say it, guys, but they flat out suck. And Pagano's gotten a little bit better, but I mean, he's still not great. And Frank Wright and Mike McCoy, I don't think Mike McCoy I think he's a good guy, but he's not strong enough to run the team. I don't think he's a strong enough individual to run the team. Like, he can't get the guys fired up in the locker room like some of these coaches can. I mean, can you imagine what Andy Reid says in the locker room? That guy he's got some power, and he will lay it on the line and tell his players what he really thinks. I don't think McCoy's that kind of person, and we need somebody like that to light a fire on this team's ass to really get them pumped and motivated to go out there and kick some ass on the gridiron, and they're not doing it.
It sounds like the Norv talk all over again. People were saying that Norv Turner was, way too quiet, way too conservative. It's almost a repeat in a way.
I just think that Mike McCoy and Frank Reich, they have a real opportunity here to change our minds, to change everybody's minds. They have a real opportunity to look at the deficiencies and look at how our offensive line is playing and design an offensive game plan that will take advantage of our strengths, minimize our weaknesses, and use our strengths to our benefit and make us, go out there and the things that we do good, do those things, and the things that we don't do good, stay away from those things. And I do understand that there is another team out there, and they're trying to take advantage of our weaknesses, but we need to do a better job of being able to cover those up.
Gentlemen, we have 2 weeks. Trav, we have 2 weeks, my friend. We have the Cleveland Browns, and we have a Pittsburgh team with no Ben Roethlisberger to right the ship, because then we go to Green Bay, and you've seen Green Bay right now looks like
they look unbeatable.
I mean, I don't want to give them the Lombardi Trophy yet, but they look damn good. So if we don't right the ship in the next 2 weeks, Green Bay is going to embarrass us.
Well, I know, fans. I love my team, and you guys know them as diehard as they come. But I already put an L on the schedule for Green Bay. I did that even before the season started, because we're nowhere on their level of play, especially in Green Bay. And that was already a loss. That was already a loss to me this season anyway. So, but I hope they prove me wrong there, and I hope that they can actually beat them on the road. But that's a huge task.
It's certainly a tough game. But I'd love to hear you the Wednesday after that coming on the show and talking about how wrong you were. I really, really hope that happens. I'm betting that you really hope it happens too.
I'll do it. But I'll do it. But I agree with you. We have to write it against Cleveland and against Pittsburgh. Michael Vick's, he's not a bad backup, but he's not a great backup. But they do have a pretty good front line.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to find a way to penetrate through that line to get to Michael Vick. Because once we get Michael Vick and we get him down hard, they really have nobody else to come in and play. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to get 2 wins in a row, kind of get this team motivated again, get them in a positive thinking mode, and let them know that, hey, we can win games. Because come Green Bay, they've got their hands. They've got their. I mean, it's going to be a game of I don't even know what you can even call it, but it's not going to be an easy game. We're going to have our we're going to have some issues out there, and we're probably going to get our asses kicked. I hate to say it, but Green Bay's, I have to say, they're always a great team, and they look just as good as they always do this year, if not better this year.
Well,
So,
I will agree with you. It is going to be a tough game. I'm not ready to concede a loss yet, but I do think it's going to be a great game. Hey, look, Trav, we're going to move on. I appreciate you calling in, and I look forward to hearing from you. I know you're coming down, but if you have the chance, grab that cell phone and call in Sunday morning and be part of the pregame show 9 to 10.
why don't you guys come down and do your show at this thing? I can get tickets if you guys need tickets. I've got access to tickets. You guys just got to say, hey, we want to go to the game with SoCal Trav.
Yeah, we will actually be doing some games down there. We couldn't get it together. We've been having a whole lot of, as you can see, Justin's not in here. He's actually at the Padre game tonight. We've been having a lot of scheduling issues. So we're going to be doing some on the road shows. We haven't been able to do them yet. We actually got something scheduled up in Alpine later on this year, and we will definitely be doing some shows down at the Q. So unfortunately it won't be this week though, but we do look forward to hearing from you Sunday and each and every week. And before you go, of course, Trav, you got any last words?
Oh, yes. As always, go Bolts.
Go Bolts. That's right.
Right
We'll hear
on,
from you
Trav.
Sunday. Thanks a lot, Trav.
Bye, guys. Talk to you.
Bye.
So, I know we've been talking Chargers for almost 2 hours now, but I do want to bring up a little bit of Padre conversation. Obviously the season's winding down. They got 5 games left, and we just went down 1-0 against the Brewers. What I want to talk is try to talk some positive. The Padres have had a pretty rough season, but they've had some bright spots.
Yes.
And one person that me and Jason can agree upon that has had a season that you would write on paper. Like before the season, if you looked at this roster and looked at their production year in and year out, you would say that Matt Kemp has had the exact season that you would think he would have had.
Yes.
He always is a slow start, but he comes on hot. He is done for the rest of the year. I guess he got a hand injury last night, but he hit the century mark with 100 RBIs. And for me, looking at this Padres roster, there's been a lot of bright spots, but I got to give my MVP of the San Diego Padres in 2015 to Matt Kemp.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing that you had said before we went on the air was they have to win the rest of their games to tie last year's record or to
one game better than last year if they win them all.
Not going to happen. It most likely isn't going to happen, which is really, really a bummer because, numbers, people say numbers don't lie, but sometimes they do. I from top to bottom, I'm going to tell you, this team is better than last year's team. The issue, and we're going to talk about this a lot once the season's over, and we talk about the things that they need to do. The biggest mistake that the Padres made was firing Bud Black.
I agree with you.
I think that Bud Black took a very, very, I don't even want to say a mediocre team, but a shitty-ass team last year, and made them finish, with a somewhat decent record,
Right.
And I think that if they would have let him stay with the team, nothing against Pat Murphy, but if they would have let him stay and finish coaching, who knows? Who knows?
Well, and some of these players have been quoted as saying that they were really upset when Bud Black was moved on, and I'm not saying that they necessarily gave up on this team because let's be honest. If you've ever played professional or sports in general in your life. Everybody has a competitive edge. When you play sports, you have a competitive edge. These guys want to go out there. They want to perform. They want to win. But when there's something that happens on your team that drastic early on in the year, somebody that you believe in, somebody that's your leader is let go before you believe that it's time for him to be let go, it messes with your psyche. It messes with the chemistry of this team.
Yes.
And I think it's taken the rest of this year to try to get some continuity, and it hasn't happened under Pat Murphy. And that's the other thing, the season's going to end, and A.J. Smith is going to go out there or A.J. Preller is going to go out there and find his guy. And I don't think it's going to be Pat Murphy. I think that somebody else is going to be coming in here.
Not that he got a long enough look, but I don't think Pat Murphy has done anything to make who knows? Who knows what he could do? But he certainly hasn't done anything this year to make you go, man, that's the guy. That is the guy that's going to lead us to the playoffs. And a lot of people hated Bud Black. We talked a lot about that at the beginning of the year. I just think that he was a better coach, a better manager than Pat Murphy. So it's going to be interesting who they bring in. But top to bottom, I think we have a better team than we had last year. I know that Justin Upton will probably be gone, but we don't know for sure. Moving forward from there, maybe Kennedy is going to be gone as well. But we have some pitching. We still have some pitching prospects. We got Erlin. We've got some other guys that could be that could pitch next year. And who knows? Who knows? We'll talk a lot about this after the season's over.
All right, guys, I think we're going to wind this puppy down. We want to thank all you guys for, joining in either via the chat room, calling into the show. Jake Hefner from ProFootballSpot.com for giving us Jake's take. Travis, SoCal Trav, a.k.a. the Mayor, for calling into the show. Scott, Big Brian, Josh Hill, and company in the chat room. We want to thank all you guys for joining the show. Stick with us Sunday, 9 to 10 a.m., Padres pregame show. Chargers versus, did I say Padres?
You said Padres.
Chargers versus the Cleveland Browns, 9 to 10 a.m. Sunday morning. Same place, Spreaker. Download the app. Follow us. You'll get an email when we go live. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Guys, this is the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
And we are out.
AFC West, we rep our team. Yeah, we bless. Don't put us to the test. Yeah, you know the rest. Blue and gold's when we bleed, they go on our chest. Die hard fans in them stands, that's the best. We rep our city, we rep our team. We love our city, we love our team. Now you understand, the Chargers is our team. San Diego Chargers.
Thank you for listening to the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans by the fans. Brought to you by Cali Comfort, home of the low and slow barbecue, and SK Digital Imaging with Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, Jason Eidsmoe, and Mike Maciejewski. Subscribe to us on iHeartRadio, on Spreaker, and on iTunes. Visit SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com for all your Chargers, Padres, and Aztecs news.